At the same time, don't. It's the most hated gun in the game, and I can see why, because auto shotgun. So hello gamers, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be counting down the top 10 easiest guns to use in Phantom Forces. This is my opinion, but it's basically based off of what is a super easy gun to use overall. And the first gun we have is the DBV-12. The reason this gun is pretty easy to use is basically it's a shotgun, but it's also semi-auto, and it has 10 rounds and 250 RPM. It also does pretty decent damage as well. Like, that's a one tap there. And keep in mind, I'm using Flechette, which does lower your damage by quite a bit. It can still kill with 4 out of 8 pellets. It's one of 2 shotguns in the game that doesn't lose a pellet to kill with Flechette, and it's probably the best. It's between the KSG and this for guns that don't lose a pellet to kill with Flechette, and I'd say this one is definitely better with Flechette. But yeah, it's a one tap, and it has 250 RPM and 10 rounds, so this is a really easy gun to use. It's one of the less hated easy guns to use, not gonna lie. Like, not a ton of people are like, ooh, the DBV-12, but it's a really good gun as well. Basically a Saiga with a little bit less RPM, but like kind of better recoil, probably lower spread, and better damage overall, making it a really solid gun. I'd say the Saiga is probably just better because it has more RPM, you know. Ooh. And now that the Saiga actually has a bit of a faster reload, this is still a very good shotgun, and Flechette works really well on it, as you can see. Considering I was actually getting hit markers there, I probably put the guy to like one tap. Super skill-based gun, as you can see. But yeah. Okay, that is number 10, the DBV-12, but at number 9, we have a gun known as the MG36, which is one of the most easy LMGs in the game to use, simply because it has 100 bullets. That's really all it needs to be easy to use. The recoil is pretty low, and really just requires looking at a guy, because it's just all over the place recoil. Not quite as bad as the HK21, but like, look at this. You don't gotta really pull down, it just goes a little bit all over the place. The velocity is super high. It's got 100 bullets. It really doesn't matter what I say about the gun as to it being pretty difficult to use. If it has 100 bullets, it's easy to use. The M231, the M855, yeah, it's got recoil. It's got 100 bullets. It doesn't matter. I will say that the M231 M855 is harder to use than this. Not by a long shot, because it's got 100 bullets, but you know, this is super easy to use. Really good gun. The MG36 is like, honestly, a bit underrated. I'm not gonna lie. The damage isn't the best, the RPM isn't the best, but it has 100 bullets, so it really doesn't matter what else you have with it, and it's a 5.56, very high velocity. Decent handling, decent reload time, especially for 100 bullets. It's a fast reload for 100 bullets. Now, at number 8, we actually have the KSG-12, and this is not based off of the regular KSG. This is more based off of, especially the KSG-25 barrel, which I don't really like, so I'm not gonna put it on. But basically, the KSG is very similar to the DBV-12, damage-wise, spread-wise. However, it's got 14 instead of 10 rounds. It can have up to 26 with a +1, making it extremely easy to use. People who use this, they generally don't go for one taps. I usually go for one taps with this gun because you can, and it's honestly one of my favorite shotguns, if not my favorite shotgun. Maybe the Remington 870 is more my style at this point, and you know, I like the double barrels, but not as much as I used to. When I'm usually playing, I'm using the KSG and the Remington, which is funny because I have every gun in the game, and I'm using the low rank ones. You could say that the DBV is easier to use than this because of the RPM, but I would say because it just has so many bullets that the KSG is easier to use, because you know, you don't really run out of bullets ever. I don't think I've ever run out of bullets on this gun, especially since it's single load, so as you're fighting people, you can continuously be loading shells and essentially have an infinite size magazine. Like, I've literally, I don't think, ever emptied this gun without trying to. Next up, we have a PDW known as the Eps H41. This is a 71 round capacity PDW with 1,000 RPM. It doesn't do the most damage, but it has 1,000 RPM and it has 71 rounds. It's really easy to use. Is it the best for range? No, of course not. But it actually doesn't do too bad damage at range. It does 19, which is actually on the higher end for PDW. It's still going to be a 6-shot, but it can actually 5-shot with a single headshot. And it also has pretty decent penetration for a PDW as well. And like I said, the recoil doesn't make it the best for range, but it actually makes it somewhat usable at range. And it's got 71 rounds and 1,000 RPM, and it reloads very fast as well, and has like 200 reserve. For the PDWs, this is definitely going to be pretty much the easiest all around. Honestly, the Rama is more difficult to use than this, even though, you know, the Rama's got 80 rounds, but the Rama actually has recoil that you somewhat have to account for. Not a ton, but a little bit. I have a ton of kills on the PPSH from the old Obras barrel, and I don't really use it a ton anymore because it's not super broken anymore. At number 6, we have an LMG that simply is easy to use because of the time to kill, and also the fact that that's without controlling the recoil. The recoil is higher than other LMGs, but it's not bad at all. Very similar concept to the PPSH and the MG36. And sure, yes, it does have 50 rounds, but it does way higher damage than the MG36, and it has 1,000 RPM. You gotta wait to reload every once in a while, and you know, reloading can be annoying, but like long reloads don't necessarily make a gun harder to use. They just make it more inconvenient to use, except if it only has like one bullet. This gun, you have plenty of bullets to use before you have to reload, you know? The BFG, you miss your one shot, it's kind of over, which makes the BFG, if you're going to actually play the game more normal and not mega camp, makes the BFG somewhat difficult to use. But this gun, it's got 50 rounds, so it doesn't really matter that it has a slow reload, because so does the MG36. But of course, the MG36 can fire for longer, but this gun has a very fast time to kill. It can kill in 0.06 seconds because it can two-shot headshot, and it has 1,000 RPM. It's pretty good. Now, number 5, we have another shotgun, and this is clearly going to be going to the Saiga 12, not only because it does have the full auto conversion, which sucks, but is very low skill, but it's also a 350 RPM semi-automatic shotgun that can still pretty effectively one-shot. And if you're pretty good and you can hit your one-shots, this is amazing. And if you can't, it doesn't matter because you can spam. This is definitely going to be like top 5 at least for shotguns in the game. If you want to watch my top 5 shotguns, I won't spoil the spot that I gave it. It might have been number 1, I won't tell you, but yeah, you can do this with it. Sure, it's not going to one-tap as much as like the DBV and the KSG can, but it just fires so fast that you don't even need to go for one-taps. I'm not going to lie, like I don't use remove stock on it because it has a little bit of recoil, but like it doesn't really matter with the recoil, because as long as you don't fire it super fast and as long as you're not using like muzzle booster and remove stock, it's completely fine. The recoil is not bad if you're just running like 2 green lasers, a muzzle brake, and you're not firing it at like maximum RPM. And even if you are, it's really not that bad because it's a shotgun, it's got spread. You don't really gotta aim directly at a fella to kill him. But regardless, this is a very easy gun to use and probably one of the best shotguns to use, if not the best shotgun to use when it comes to very close performance, especially if you're not that great. Because some pump actions, you know, Remington 870, yeah, they one-tap more, but like this just shoots faster, so it doesn't really matter too much, I'm not gonna lie, because you can just be no skill. Now, number 4, we have essentially a mixture of the MG3 KWS and the MG36, because it's the HK21. It has the fast RPM, it has the high damage, and it has the 100 rounds. The recoil is all over the place, yes, but the recoil isn't skill-based because you don't even gotta pull down or really do anything with the recoil. You kind of just look at a guy and then they die. Now, this gun used to easily be one of the most broken guns in the game, but it's not really super broken anymore. It's still very, very good, and in close range, just an absolute monster, but it's a little bit better. The one thing that's a little bit more skill-based is the fact that if you want to be super accurate, you kind of got to fire it in shorter bursts before the recoil starts to be all over the place. But I'm going to be real, you don't need to do that, so it doesn't really matter. Like, you can just shoot at a guy and then they die. The recoil makes it easily one of the most no-skill guns in the game because it doesn't take skill to control the recoil, because you can't. I don't think there's a single person on planet Earth who could control the recoil because it doesn't have a pattern. It just goes all over the place, which makes it just really about holding down the trigger until somebody dies. That's why this gun is super hated. You know, it's not the most hated gun in the game. It's pretty far up there. I actually have a top 10 hated guns video, and I'm not gonna lie, this one is on there. It's not number 1, but I think it's top 5. At the number 3 spot, we have something that's on a battle rifle, a PDW, and a carbine, and it doesn't really matter which one you choose, and that is, of course, the 45 ACP conversion on the FALs. In most cases, except maybe the Para Shorty, the recoil is just all over the place, and it doesn't really have a lot of recoil, especially on the carbine, and it does very high damage as well. Basically, what you get is lower velocity and slightly lower damage, but pretty similar damage to the default FALs, and also you have 50 bullets. It's very accurate, it does very good damage. This isn't as broken as it used to be, but it's still kind of, at this point, a little bit slept on. I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't know why more people don't use this. It also comes with alt aim if you can't aim down sights. Yeah, it's just stupid. You could say some of the other LMGs are higher on the list, like the HK21, and I can see that argument because their recoil is just all over the place, and it makes it so you have to be kind of no skill and not try to control it at all. But when the gun is also more accurate, it does make it kind of interesting to say which one is better. If you're in close range, the FAL 45 conversions are just, they're like the most no-skill conversions I can really think of, considering they turn a gun that's decently hard to use, 20-round guns with some recoil and slow reload for the magazine capacity, into a 50-round drum gun from Fortnite. They will two-shot you, they have 700 RPM, and they have 50 rounds, and they really don't have a lot of recoil, I'm not gonna lie. Weird conversions, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like the idea of them, but not lowering that much damage with 50 rounds is kind of crazy. And before, these guns actually used to do the same maximum damage, so you would actually get 44 damage from 45 ACP, which was so busted. At number 2, we have, you probably guessed it, or maybe you thought this would be number 1, the USAS 12. USAS 12 is an automatic shotgun that is honestly probably better than Saiga 12 auto, because I don't see why you'd ever use Saiga 12 auto unless you literally cannot hit a shot to save your life, because the Saiga 12 auto conversion, if you didn't know, it actually doesn't increase your fire rate. It just makes your spread bad, and it just makes your recoil like 50% worse. So don't use it, but I guess you can use the USAS. But honestly, at the same time, don't. It's the most hated gun in the game, and I can see why, because auto shotgun, very skill-based. Yes, it sucks at range, but like, just use it on Bazaar and you'll always win. This gun is honestly scary if somebody's like decent at the game and they're using it on Bazaar, because it turns somebody who can like look in the general direction of somebody into an absolute monster, because it's an auto shotgun. And if you're within 1 foot of a guy and you have an auto shotgun, it's pretty easy to kill them. And if you have a gun that has 10 rounds, shoots at 450 RPM, and can technically one-tap, and actually doesn't one-tap as badly as you'd expect. I can one-tap with this gun. You have to hit 6 out of the 8 pellets and the spread is pretty trash. But if you're in point-blank range, it can actually one-shot kind of effectively, which is pretty scary considering it's automatic and has the same RPM as like a grease gun, which doesn't sound that much, but like, it's pretty fast. It does take a little bit more skill when you're at longer ranges, because you have to close that range and get close enough to a guy to actually kill them. However, there's a little cheat for that doesn't take any skill, and that's called go to the server browser and select Bazaar, or only pull this gun out when you're in a close range map. You know, you don't gotta use it for range. You don't gotta. It's not like a legal requirement to use this if it's a longer range map. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, is the gun broken? Is the gun easy to use? Yeah. It's not necessarily broken, it's just super easy to use, which makes it broken in pretty much anybody's hands, because it's, you know, going to be a gun that turns you from a bad player into a player who's still pretty bad, but can actually get kills because the gun is so easy to use. It doesn't have to be a great gun to get you some free kills. Could you get like a 100 kill game with this? Yeah, but honestly, if you're pretty good, it's probably just better to use literally every other shotgun in the game, except maybe the AA-12, but we'll talk about that. That's a little bit of a spoiler for the final one. Comment down below which one do you think it'll be for the number 1 pick. Well, comment which one you thought it was going to be for the number 1, because you probably know. So yes, it is the DT11 Pro. I'm just kidding. It's the AA-12. You're probably like, why is the AA-12 more of a no-skill gun than the USAS? It fires slower, right? First off, it can probably more effectively one-tap, and second off, it has a 20-round drum. It also fires slightly slower, which means you're gonna take forever to run out of rounds. You know, like 3.5 seconds of sustained fire, which is kind of ridiculous. And of course, we got, you know, the best map for the AA-12, Ravid 911. Everyone knows that Ravid 911 is just the best map for this gun, because it's such a long-range gun, but you're still able to get kills with this. It's just not really recommended that you use this on a long-range map, of course, because it's a shotgun, first off. Second off, it's one of the most ineffective at range shotguns, but you got a 20-round drum, you can still one-tap, and it doesn't really have any recoil, as you can see. Imagine if I got a kill. Nope. Let's try it again. Ooh, we got it. I was looking at that guy, but like, I probably wouldn't have hit him with literally any other gun in the game, which is funny because it's the auto shotgun, you know, like, ew, I'm using the Rex. This gun takes a little bit of skill. I don't like that. Now we got to do the epic challenge of getting a kill with the Rex on somebody who's using a shotgun on Ravid, so I can get some reserve ammo from him. That's one guy. That guy is not using a shotgun. That's a Scar. All right, we have more bullets now. Wow, that was awesome. Sometimes you see people just using like the chainsaw grip and walking around and being like, I don't even know what I'm looking at and I got a kill, you know? USAS is not capable of that. Firstly, it has recoil. Secondly, the damage and the spread aren't quite as good as the AA-12. I'm not saying the AA-12 is a great gun. It's not a very good gun. I don't really like it. I actually like the USAS more than the AA-12, but between the two, this is the easiest gun to use in the entire game by far. It really doesn't take any skill to use this gun, but you can be more skilled with a gun, even if the gun doesn't really take a lot of skill to use in general. And people call guns no skill all the time. That's because, like, it's kind of easy to get a kill with most of the guns, especially the automatic guns. Like, it's so easy to get a kill with an auto. Shotguns can sometimes be harder to use, but automatic and shotgun, they don't really work too well together. Ultimate challenge, using this guy's gun. What is this 2x? I don't understand why people use a 2x when the coyote sight is a 2x zoom. Like, just use the coyote sight. It's way more clean. It doesn't cover your entire vision. Very fair. and balanced gun. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy, that is the top 10 easiest guns to use in Phantom Forces. Make sure to like and subscribe, but I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.